Where did you steal that coat? That name, my name is stitched inside it. The little girl looked up at him, startled but not afraid. Her brows pulled together in confusion. I didn't steal it, she said quickly, holding the coat closer around herself. My mom gave it to me. I don't steal things. Daniel's expression softened immediately. Hey, all right, he said, lowering his voice. I believe you. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. The hum of the gas station continued around them, the soft beep of the register, wind brushing against the glass doors. Daniel nodded toward the coat. It just surprised me, he said, because I'm almost certain that coat used to be mine. The girl blinked. She looked down at the coat, then back at him, clearly unsure. No, she said, shaking her head. It's my mom's. Daniel gave a small, patient nod. I understand why you'd say that, he replied. But I had this exact coat made years ago. Custom. Limited edition. Not something you can just find anywhere. Before the girl could respond, a voice came from behind the counter. All right, what's going on here? Frank had stepped out again, this time more direct, his tone firmer. He looked from Daniel to the girl, then back again. Sir, he said, you got your change. So why are you still here talking to a kid and now claiming her coat belongs to you? Daniel turned calmly. I'm not causing trouble, he said. Frank crossed his arms. Then what are you doing? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're trying to tell her something she clearly doesn't believe. Daniel didn't react to the tension. He simply gestured toward the coat. That jacket is a custom piece I owned, he said. I gave it away years ago to someone who helped me. I never saw it again until now. Frank narrowed his eyes. And you expect us to just take your word for it? Daniel paused. That's fair, he said. Behind him, the girl spoke again, her tone thoughtful but firm. If it's really yours, she said, then prove it. Daniel looked at her. He nodded once. All right, he said quietly. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the store. Frank frowned immediately. Now what's he doing? He muttered, stepping closer to the glass. The girl watched too, curious. Outside, the wind had picked up. Daniel crossed the lot with steady steps, heading toward his Range Rover. He opened the trunk, reached inside, and pulled something out long, dark, folded carefully. Then he closed the trunk and walked back toward the entrance. Inside, the door swung open with a soft chime. Daniel stepped in, holding the coat in both hands. He walked straight back to where the girl stood, then carefully unfolded it. For a moment, no one spoke, because what he held was the same coat, same color, same cut, same weight of fabric. Frank stepped closer without realizing it. Wait, he said under his breath. Daniel turned the coat slightly and opened the inside lining. D. Carter. The same stitching. The same placement. The same unmistakable detail. He didn't say anything at first. He just let them look. The girl's eyes moved from the coat in his hands to the one she was wearing, then back again. They're the same, she whispered. Daniel nodded gently. I had two made, he said. One for myself, one as a backup. Same tailor, same design, same stitching. Frank let out a slow breath. He muttered. Daniel looked back at the girl, his voice calm, careful not to overwhelm her. I'm not here to take anything from you, he said. That coat, it was given as a gift. And if your mom has had it all these years, then it belongs with her. The girl held on to the front of her coat again, but this time not defensively, just thoughtfully. My mom said someone kind gave it to her, she said. Daniel's expression softened. I remember that night, he replied quietly. It was cold. My car broke down, and she stayed to help me when she didn't have to. He paused. She was the kind one, not me. The girl looked at him differently now, not with suspicion, with curiosity. She works here, she said again, pointing toward the back hallway. Daniel followed her gesture, then looked back at her. Is she almost done? Soon. Daniel folded his coat back over his arm. Behind him, Frank shook his head slightly. Well, he said, I guess you weren't making it up. Daniel gave a faint smile. I don't make claims like that lightly. Frank studied him a moment longer, then nodded. All right. Just keep things respectful. I will. Daniel stepped aside and moved toward the waiting area, sitting down a short distance away. The girl glanced at him. You're waiting? Yes. You don't have to. I know. Outside, the wind pressed harder against the glass. Inside, something had shifted. Daniel didn't realize how still he had become until the sound of a door creaking open pulled him back. It came from the narrow hallway behind the counter. A shift change. Footsteps followed slow, measured, the kind that carried the weight of a long day. Frank glanced up briefly, then nodded toward the back. "Hey, Monica, you're good to clock out." Daniel's attention sharpened instantly. Monica. The name settled somewhere deep, though he didn't yet know why. A woman stepped into view. She wore a faded work shirt with the station's logo stitched over the chest, sleeves rolled just above her wrists. There were faint smudges of grease along the fabric, and a tiredness in her posture that spoke of hours spent on her feet. But there was something else too, something steady, composed, quietly resilient. She reached up, pulling her hair back into place as she stepped forward, and then she saw him. Her eyes locked onto his. Daniel felt it instantly. Not recognition in the loud, dramatic sense, but something quieter. Something deeper. The kind that takes a second longer to reach the surface. Because it's been buried. Annie turned in her seat. "Mom," she said, brightening. "You're done?" Monica didn't answer right away. Her gaze hadn't left Daniel. Then, slowly, she stepped forward. "Annie," she said, her voice calm but careful. "Come here a second." The girl slid off her chair and walked over, still glancing between them. Daniel stood. "You're still in Chicago," he said quietly. Monica let out a small breath, almost like a short laugh but without humor. "So are you," she replied. Her voice hadn't changed. That was the first thing he noticed. Frank looked between them, surprised. "You two know each other?" he asked. Monica didn't answer him. Her eyes dropped briefly to the coat Annie was wearing, then to the one Daniel held. She looked back up at Daniel. "You kept the other one," she said. Daniel nodded once. "I wasn't sure I should," he admitted, "but I couldn't throw it away." Monica's gaze softened just slightly. Annie looked up at her mother. "Mom, he said he gave you this coat," she said. "A long time ago, when it was cold." Monica placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Yes," she said quietly. "He did." Frank blinked. "Well, I'll be," he muttered under his breath. Silence settled for a moment, not awkward, but full. Daniel broke it carefully. "I tried to find you," he said. Monica shook her head. Not dismissive, just certain. "I didn't leave anything to be found," she replied. Daniel accepted it. "I figured that out," he said. Annie looked between them again, curiosity growing. "You helped him?" she asked her mother. Monica nodded. "He needed help," she said simply. Daniel let out a quiet breath. "I needed more than I realized," he added. Monica didn't respond to that. Instead, she glanced at Annie. "Did you finish your homework?" she asked gently. "Almost." "Good." The small exchange grounded the moment, pulling it back into something familiar, something real. Daniel watched them, mother and child, and felt something shift again inside him. "You've taken care of it," he said, nodding toward the coat. Monica glanced at the stitching along the sleeve. "It was too good to waste," she replied. "And winters don't get easier around here." Daniel gave a faint, understanding smile. "No, they don't." There was another pause. Daniel cleared his throat slightly. "I don't want to make this uncomfortable," he said. "I just didn't expect to see that coat again. Or you." Monica studied him for a second. Then she nodded. "I didn't expect it either." Annie tugged lightly at her mother's hand. "Mom, he waited for you," she said. Monica looked at Daniel again. "You did?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Why?" He considered the question. "Because there were many answers, but only one that mattered. Because some things shouldn't be left unfinished," he said. Monica held his gaze. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, something shaped by years, distance, and a night neither of them had forgotten. If this moment touched your heart, take a second to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you are watching from, because your story matters too. And if you believe in second chances and unfinished stories finding their way back, don't forget to subscribe for more. Frank cleared his throat awkwardly behind the counter. "Well," he said, "I guess that settles the mystery of the coat." No one responded. Daniel shifted slightly, adjusting his grip on the coat he had brought in. "I was on my way somewhere," he said. "But that can wait." Monica raised an eyebrow slightly. "Must not have been that important." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "It wasn't." Annie looked up at both of them again, then spoke with simple certainty. "We could get something to eat," she said. Monica glanced down at her. "That's not something we just—" "It's all right," Daniel said gently, not interrupting, just offering. Monica looked at him. There was hesitation there. Daniel didn't push. Just lunch, he said. Nothing complicated. Monica considered it. Then she looked at Annie, who was watching her with quiet hope. Finally, she exhaled. All right, she said. Lunch. Annie smiled. Daniel nodded once. All right. And as the three of them stood there, preparing to step out of the small gas station and into something neither of them had planned, the rain had already begun by the time they stepped outside. Not heavy, just a steady drizzle that softened the edges of everything. The pavement darkened, reflecting the dim glow of the gas station lights, and the wind carried that quiet, familiar chill that settled deep into the bones if you stood still too long. Daniel moved ahead slightly, opening the passenger door of his Range Rover. Go ahead, he said, stepping back to give them space. Monica hesitated. It wasn't about the car. It was about everything that came with it. She had spent years learning how to move through life without depending on moments like this, without expecting doors to open, without assuming kindness came without a cost. Annie, however, stepped forward without overthinking it. She paused just long enough to look at her mother. It's raining, she said simply. Monica exhaled quietly. All right, she said. They got in. Daniel closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side. For a brief moment, he stood there, rain tapping lightly against his coat, his hand resting on the handle. Then he got in. The inside of the car was warm, insulated from the outside world. Soft leather, subtle lighting. The faint scent of cedar and something clean, understated. Annie sat quietly, looking around not with wide-eyed amazement, but with a quiet awareness. She noticed things. The stitching on the seats, the way the dashboard lights shifted as the engine started, the small details. Daniel noticed that about her. She pays attention, he said, glancing briefly at Monica. Monica followed his gaze. She always has, she replied. Daniel nodded. I can tell. He pulled the car out slowly, the wipers moving in a steady rhythm. Do you have a place in mind? He asked. Monica shook her head. Somewhere simple, she said. Nothing fancy. Daniel gave a faint smile. I know a place. They drove in quiet for a few minutes. Not uncomfortable, just unhurried. Rain streaked across the windows, blurring the city lights into soft lines of gold and red. The kind of evening that made people go home early, sit down with warm food, and let the world slow for a while. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, but his thoughts were elsewhere. You've been working there long? He asked after a moment. Almost 5 years, Monica said. He glanced at her briefly. 5? She nodded. Steady work matters more than perfect work. There was no complaint in her voice, just truth. Daniel understood that. I should have looked harder, he said quietly. Monica didn't respond immediately. You looked, she said after a moment. That's more than most people would have done. That doesn't mean it was enough. No, she agreed. It doesn't. The honesty between them didn't cut. It settled. Annie leaned slightly forward from the back seat. Were you really stuck on the road? She asked. Daniel smiled faintly. I was. What happened? My car broke down, phone died, and I didn't know how to fix either problem. Annie considered that. And my mom helped you? She did. Monica looked out the window, her reflection faint in the glass. You look like someone who wasn't used to needing help, she said. Daniel let out a quiet breath. I wasn't. And now? He thought about it, then answered simply, I'm learning. The car slowed as they turned onto a quieter street. A small diner came into view, nothing flashy. Just a warm glow through wide windows, a neon sign humming softly above the door. Daniel parked. This all right? He asked. Monica nodded. This is good. They stepped out into the light rain and moved quickly inside. The bell above the door chimed. Warmth greeted them instantly. The smell of grilled food, coffee, and something sweet baking in the back wrapped around the room like a familiar memory. A few customers sat in booths, talking quietly. A waitress behind the counter looked up and smiled. Sit wherever you like, she said. Daniel gestured toward a booth near the window. They slid in Annie by the glass, Monica across from Daniel. Menus were handed out. Annie looked at hers carefully. Daniel noticed. Take your time, he said. She nodded. Monica glanced up at him. You don't do this often, do you? She asked. Do what? Sit somewhere like this. Daniel looked around. He smiled slightly. Not as often as I should. The waitress returned. What can I get you folks? Coffee, Daniel said. Same, Monica added. Annie looked up. Hot chocolate, please. The waitress smiled. coming right up. As she walked away, silence settled again, but this time it felt different. Warmer, grounded. Daniel rested his hands lightly on the table. I meant what I said earlier, he began. About that night. Monica met his Gaza. I know. I didn't forget. I didn't expect you to. He nodded. I just didn't expect this. Monica followed his glance toward Annie. Life doesn't usually give notice, she said. No, he agreed. It doesn't. Annie looked between them, then down at her menu again. After a moment, she spoke softly. You kept your coat, she said. Daniel smiled faintly. I did. Why? He thought about it. Because it mattered. Because she mattered. Because something about that night had stayed with him longer than anything else in that season of his life. But he didn't say all that. Instead, he answered simply, because it reminded me of someone who did the right thing when she didn't have to. Annie nodded, satisfied with that. Monica looked at him, really looked this time. Not at the man he had become, but at the man she had met years ago. There were differences. Of course there were. But some things hadn't changed. The way he spoke when he meant something. The way he paused before answering. The way he didn't rush moments that mattered. The waitress returned with their drinks. Steam rose from the coffee. The hot chocolate was topped with a small swirl of whipped cream. Annie smiled slightly at that. Outside, the rain continued. Inside, time slowed. And for the first time since stepping into that gas station, this didn't feel like coincidence anymore. It felt like something being given a second chance. Not forced, not rushed, just allowed. And as Daniel sat there, across from the woman he had once lost to the quiet corners of the city, and beside the child who carried a piece of that past into the present, he understood something clearly. Some stories don't end. They wait. For the moment someone is willing to continue them. The diner had a rhythm of its own. Plates clinked softly. Coffee refilled without being asked. Conversations stayed low. Respectful, like people understood that some places were meant for quiet, not noise. The kind of place older folks returned to out of habit, not trend. The kind of place where no one rushed you out the door. Daniel sat back slightly after taking a sip of his coffee, letting the warmth settle in. Across from him, Monica wrapped her hands loosely around her cup, not drinking yet, just holding it, like she needed the heat more than the taste. Annie stirred her hot chocolate slowly, watching the swirl of cream disappear into the dark. For a moment, none of them spoke, but it wasn't empty. It was full in a different way, like a pause before something important found the right words. Daniel broke the silence gently. You stayed in the same area all these years? Monica nodded once. Didn't have much reason to leave, she said. Work was steady. School was close. Her eyes shifted briefly toward Annie. That matters more than anything. Daniel followed her gaze. Yeah, he said quietly. It does.